I love movies. And I've been lucky enough to make a few in my lifetime. I've also seen how movies have changed over the decades. And there's one particular era of filmmaking that I feel gets overlooked. And those would be the Hollywood blockbusters from the mid-90s to the early 2000s. We all know that cinema ended in the year 2002 when the first Spider-Man film swung into theaters. So I'd like to take this opportunity to explore the great films that showcase the final golden age of Hollywood. My name is Martin Scorsese, and this is Big Momma's House. A note to the viewer. This program contains what some might consider to be spoilers, but I guarantee that nothing can spoil this perfect film. This is merely an enhancement, and my own opinion.
Make it to the bathroom before I lose my bowels all over myself. Whoa, I make it. Have mercy, Lord. Mercy.
It was the year 2000, and cinema was entering a new century. And there were many great masters at work. Ridley Scott was making Gladiator. Mike Nichols was making What Planet Are You From? And John Frankenheimer was making Reindeer Games. But deep in Orange County, there was a more daring production being made by Universal Studios. While Big Momma's House takes place in Atlanta, these quaint exteriors were actually filmed in Orange County, California, near Disneyland. And the rest of the film was shot on the Universal Studios backlot, joining the ranks of Psycho, XXX, and Home Alone 2 as one of the best films ever produced on their legendary soundstages. You know, of all the films I've talked about, Big Momma's House is probably the most criminally underrated of all of them. Some people think it's a repackaging of Mrs. Doubtfire, but as an FBI undercover officer. But it's much more than that. It's a very spiritual film, in fact, and it's about greed, deception, and the importance of family.
How far should a man go for love?
Rising star Martin Lawrence was successfully making his transition from television to film. He had a popular TV show simply named Martin. He co-starred with Will Smith in the buddy cop film Bad Boys. He was also a very popular stand-up comic in the 90s.
But thank y'all for coming out. I'm even noticing white people are coming out now. You guys like me now, huh?
In 1999, he starred in the crime comedy Blue Streak with Luke Wilson. In that story, he is a criminal posing as a police officer.
I'm the man, Frank.
In Big Momma's House, it's the inverse. He's an FBI agent posing as a 300-pound grandmother, whom everyone calls Big Momma.
Look at you, Big Momma. I hardly recognize you.
Oh, child, that's only makeup now.
Lawrence has always been interested in playing characters who play characters. And just watch this pizza delivery scene in Blue Streak as evidence of that.
Pizza delivery for robbery, homicide.
This film, Big Momma's House, was always meant as a vehicle for Martin Lawrence. The producers were fans of his character, Shanae, on his TV show, Martin.
What do you want, Shanae?
Oh, my goodness. If it isn't Little Miss Attitude.
Of course, we've had many films of men believably posing as women to get something that they want. Some Like It Hot, with Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis is a great example. Tootsie, with Dustin Hoffman. And perhaps the best example of this in the 90s was Mrs. Doubtfire, with Robin Williams. But Big Momma was the first film to feature an African-American lead in this type of role. Martin Lawrence helped pave the way for other films like Joanna Man, White Chicks, and Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman. While preparing for the film, Martin Lawrence was very dedicated. In fact, one day he was jogging with extra layers on to get used to the Big Momma outfit. And he actually passed out of heat stroke, and he went into a coma for 3 days. What would you do for your art?
Welcome to Mama's Southern cooking. The first thing I will be adding...
After a series of makeup tests, the makeup team actually had to develop their own method using silicone to make the suit more malleable. They wanted to make sure that Lawrence was able to showcase his physical comedic brilliance underneath the fat suit. It was a meticulous process of getting it right, and it took almost 2 hours every day to apply. The team said they also paid very close attention to the breasts to make sure to get them right. And there are many funny instances of how these breasts are used in the film. When it came time to doing the prosthetics, they actually merged Martin Lawrence's face and Big Mama's face together. They took facial features of Big Mama and applied them to Martin Lawrence, and they actually added a fake nose to the Big Mama character to match Lawrence's nose better. The role of Big Mama is played by Broadway legend Ella Mitchell. She was in the original cast of The Wiz, and was even on an episode of Sesame Street, teaching children about gospel music. Big Mama's birth name is Hattie Mae Pierce. Perhaps this is an homage to the Academy Award-winning actress Hattie McDaniel from Gone with the Wind. There are many great editors who became directors. Robert Weiss is a great example. He was an editor on Citizen Kane and ended up directing West Side Story. So the director of Big Momma's House was an editor as well. He worked on Pretty Woman, and he worked for Christopher Columbus for many years. He edited Home Alone, and another film of his, Mrs. Doubtfire. So it may not come as a shock to you that the editor of Mrs. Doubtfire directed Big Momma's House, because he clearly understands the psychology of a man who will dress up as a woman to get something he needs. His directorial debut was a film called Never Been Kissed, starring Drew Barrymore. She plays a journalist who goes back to high school, posing as a student in order to do research on modern teenage culture. So obviously Gosnell is obsessed with characters who have to keep up a front and go undercover. I mean, this storytelling device goes all the way back to Shakespeare. But The Bard is an obvious influence. But there's another film that has the greater influence on Big Momma's House. And that is The Night of the Hunter. There is a similar setup for both of these films. Daddy! A desperate father robs a bank and hides the money before he is arrested.
2 years ago, he robbed a bank, popped a guard and the bank manager, and walked out with $2 million in cash. We got him 4 days later, but the money was never recovered.
In Big Momma's House, it's the police who are on the trail looking for the money. And in The Night of the Hunter,
Where?
it's the priest, played by Robert Mitchum, who goes back to the man's town looking for the hidden money.
We're not keeping secrets from each other, are we, little lad?
So The Night of the Hunter and Big Momma's House have very similar setups, but they are two sides of good and evil.
Would you like me to tell you the little story of right hand, left hand? The story of good and evil?
Martin Lawrence is an FBI agent, performing this task on behalf of justice.
Now, I've gone undercover as Big Mama.
And Robert Mitchum's character is performing this task simply out of greed. But both of them are posing as spiritual pillars of the community. Mitchum being a priest, and Big Mama being a God-fearing Southern woman. It should also be noted that both these films take place in the American South. It's more so the Terrence Howard character who is the representation of evil. Just look at this incredible establishing shot of the character. Every time we see the character, he is in shadow, lurking, menacing. After he escapes from prison, his only goal is to track down his ex-wife and the money he left behind. I also love the contrasting environments of this film. We have a very warm and green Atlanta, the home of Big Mama, and a cold and dark Los Angeles, representing the past for Sherry. The FBI suspects that Terrence Howard's ex-wife, played by Nia Long, is the #1 suspect in the case of the hidden money. The movie starts out as a surveillance film, following in the tradition of Coppola's The Conversation or De Palma's Blowout. But then it quickly takes a turn. If you go back to the opening scene of the film, we learn that Martin Lawrence's character is a great master of disguise and has gone undercover many times before. So in order to create a safe hideout for Sherry, Lawrence decides to become Big Mama.
Ooh, praise the Lord! It's my baby Sherry!
Big Mama, you're there.
The whole film is about improvisation, about thinking on your feet. There are countless examples of watching Malcolm cleverly get out of these situations. And here's a few.
Big Mama could never forget that ass.
What?
Mom, asthma.
Big Mama, is that duct tape on your face?
It's a beauty secret. Oh!
That's a good idea.
I paid way too much for this new wig to mess it up here.
That's what I'm talking about. Woo, I feel free.
As we've learned from the many films we've studied in the past, it's always best to adapt the script to your star. And Martin Lawrence was able to improvise some of the best and most memorable lines in this movie.
That's gay! Yes!
Let me go get my 9. Damn, you fine. I done seen a lot of scary shit in my day. But damn, that was a lot of ass.
I think I need a splint or something.
As I'm sure you've noticed by now, that the character of the partner is played by the great Paul Giamatti in a very early performance in his career. And he brings a different kind of comedic genius. While Martin is overconfident, boisterous, Giamatti is paranoid. And he brings a more grounded reality, wondering, is this actually going to work?
Why?
While Giamatti is probably best known for his dramatic work, he's unafraid to meet this movie where it's at. He goes along for the ride and enters Big Momma's house.
Yeah, come on now!
And there are some other great supporting performances in this film as well, including Anthony Anderson, Octavia Spencer, and Cedric the Entertainer. So what begins as a very slapstick comedic film, where all the obstacles are physical, it slowly transitions into a film that has a much more rich emotional tapestry. One about love. Lawrence quickly discovers that Sherry is very attractive. So this starts to complicate his role as an undercover FBI agent. I love this film because it's about living a secret life, and the theme is applicable for both characters. The Nia Long character, Sherry, is hiding her secret past from her grandmother.
So what about it, child? You in trouble? Is there something you want to tell Big Mom?
And Lawrence is hiding the fact that he's a police officer and not her actual grandma.
Big Mama, do you remember this?
The expertly crafted plot of this story
Oh, my word? Yes.
is about how both of these lies get exposed by the end. So when I was making The Departed, we went in the screening room many times, Leo and I, and we watched Big Momma's House. Because not only is this a great film about a man that's undercover, but it's a man who's undercover who falls in love. That's 2 layers deep. And we watched this film endlessly, and Leo pulled many things from it. At one point, Martin Lawrence is caught out of costume, and he has to pretend to be a local handyman. So now he's actually playing 2 characters through the rest of the film. Despite the advice of his partner, Lawrence actually pursues a romantic relationship with Sherry.
What the hell are you doing?
Don't start.
He quickly realizes that she's keeping secrets from Big Mama. So he wonders if she would open up to a romantic interest instead. Meanwhile, his performance as Big Mama becomes more and more believable to her and the community. He is ultimately abusing their trust and lying, while falling harder and harder in love with Sherry. I mean, that's the sign of a great screenplay. We have multiple conflicts going on, multiple lies being told, and we have a ticking time bomb. We know that Big Mama's going to come back to the house at some point. She could be back any day now. And so it begs the question of the audience. How is this going to end? Everything comes to a head in a very tight 20-minute climax. It's Big Mama's surprise birthday party, and dozens of party guests have descended upon the house. This is a great use of extras and creates the opportunity for innocent bystanders, as well as having an audience for when all the secrets are revealed.
Where's my baby Sherry?
Where's the money hid?
So let's go back to the Night of the Hunter and its relationship to Big Momma's house. So not only was the setup inspired by Charles Laughton's Gothic masterpiece, But so does the climax. In the original film, all of the stolen money is being hidden in the daughter's doll. We learn this very early on in the film. And in Big Momma's house, the stolen money is also being hidden in the son's toy. We learn that the toy chest that he's been lugging around this entire movie is the hiding place of the stolen money that the FBI has been looking for this entire time. The only difference between the films is that the son in Big Momma's house is an unwilling accomplice to this act. In The Night of the Hunter, the kids know and want to keep it secret from their new conniving stepfather. And Terrence Howard gives an equally terrifying performance, rivaling that of Robert Mitchum. My favorite scene in the film is when we have both Big Mommas on screen at the same time. It was always a possibility, and the audience is rewarded for their patience.
Sherry, that's you?
Yeah, Big Mama, I just wanted to come and say goodbye because we have to leave now.
Oh, but you just got, I don't want you to leave. Lord Jesus!
I forgot my keys.
Big Mama?
It's hilarious to see Terrence Howard punching who he thinks is an old woman over and over and over in the stomach. The crowd is rightfully shocked at this brutality, but we, the audience, know that it's Martin Lawrence being protected by layers of padding. Now, Big Momma's House wrapped production in April, and they only had 2 months to turn the film around for a June release in the summertime. You know, it's endlessly fascinating about how movies change in the editing room. And originally in the film, there was a opening credit sequence, an animated opening credit sequence. Here's a couple clips of it now. But they decided that it was too comedic. You see, their original concern was that the film started too dramatically, and they needed something fun to start. But it turns out they needed that dramatic opening, so the comedy would land more. It's very fascinating how these things happen. The film was executive produced by Arnan Milchan, who is the founder of Regency Pictures. Interesting fact, he was also an Israeli secret agent from the mid-60s to the mid-80s. It is unclear how much of his personal experience helped influence the film's realistic portrayal of a covert government agent. And even though the film earned over $174 million in the box office, I think it's a moral film, a film that teaches us that our past doesn't define us, and we should always give others a second chance. After the climax, and it's revealed that Martin Lawrence has been pretending to be Big Mama this entire time, he has completely abused the trust of Sherry. You start to replay every interaction that you had over the past 2 weeks, and you realize that there was a man masquerading as your beloved grandmother. That must be incredibly traumatizing for the character.
What's that?
What's what?
That.
Oh, that's just my flashlight.
But once we get to the very last scene, in the church, the film explores the ultimate Christian value,
What's he doing here?
which is redemption.
This better be good, son.
And it begs the question, will she forgive Martin Lawrence? And at the very end of the film, we are rewarded with a gospel performance by Ella Mitchell, the real Big Mama. So that's what I invite you to do with this movie. Don't judge it on its cover. Give it a second chance. There's more underneath than you think. In fact, that's the way it is with all these films. And all these films are very special because if you saw them in theaters, you saw them projected on film. And maybe you bought them on DVD. You learned how they were made. Listened to the audio commentary. But, eventually the movie does end. The credits roll, the lights come up, and for better or worse, we have to go back to our lives. But we'll always have the memory. And that's what matters. I'm Martin Scorsese. Thank you for watching.